Hello friends. That's a horrible Jim Nantz impression. Take two. Ever since they started the Masters lottery, my dad, my brother, and I, and all of our closest friends have entered every year, and nobody has won. Until this year. I got tickets to Wednesday's practice round. So last week, my dad, my brother, my uncle, and I headed down to Augusta for all of our first experiences ever at the Masters. I love golf. I love the Masters. I love the tradition of the Masters. I love walking and playing nice golf courses. Golf architecture is toward the top of my favorite things ever list. And I love Alister MacKenzie. As I'm sure it's clear as I'm talking about this, going to the Masters was a very, very special trip that all of us wanted to take. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. We'll talk about the highs, the lows. I'll give some tips. So if you were to ever enter for tickets or win tickets, then this video should be helpful because we learned a ton going this year. And overall, just give some feedback to what I would consider one of the pinnacle golf trips and certainly pinnacle golf watching trips that you can take. As I thought about the ways to structure this video, the highs, the lows, the tips, the secrets, all of these sorts of things, I realized maybe the best way to do it is just chronologically. And you'll see sort of this arc that we went on throughout the trip. And it all starts with us winning the tickets. The second after I got the email that I had been selected for 4 practice tickets for Wednesday, I called my dad. And both of us got on the computer and we did the same thing. We looked for lodging in Augusta. And there was none. There was no way after a full day of research that we could find any conceivable way to stay close to Augusta National. We also knew that when they released the lottery tickets, there would be a wave of people booking flights in other hotels. So we felt this urgency to just lock something down. What we ultimately decided was best, and I don't really see how we could do any better than this next year. I'll talk about a few things later in the video, but we decided we were gonna fly into Atlanta, stay overnight at the Kimpton Porsche Hotel in Atlanta, which was really great and awesome and moderately priced for as good of a hotel as it was. My brother drove down from Nashville. We would drive to Augusta in the morning, stay all day, and then at like 4 or 5 p.m. we would leave and travel back from Augusta to Atlanta. That sounds like a long day, and it was a really long day, but the drive wasn't bad. It was 2 hours on the way there, 2 hours on the way back. So I would say that we didn't botch that or fail it by any means. It was just really long and something to consider if we were to ever get lucky enough to win tickets again. Those logistics were fine. So we were able to get to Augusta with no trouble whatsoever. We got there in like 2 hours. And it was an easy drive. My brother's heroic. He drove down the day before, drove us to, from, and then he drove home to Nashville the day after. However, once we got to Augusta, one of the roads was closed going into Augusta National. The sheriff's department had closed it. And so we had to go all the way around in order to get parking. This was at about 8:05 in the morning. They take you on this circular roundabout way to get into one of the lots, like the north or south lot. We were in the north lot. And this is where things got really, really frustrating. From 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., we sat in about 0.5, 0.6 of a mile worth of just complete standstill traffic. There were some people who were riding up the shoulders and cutting in, which was really frustrating and probably could have been prevented if there were people controlling the traffic. There was just a ton of people walking by us at a much faster rate. And eventually there was like this hopelessness that we may not even get into the Masters by like 10 a.m. And we had gotten to Augusta like in line for parking at 8 a.m. We weren't prepared for this. I had watched a lot of videos and stuff, but I didn't realize how big of a potential liability parking could be. Because once we finally got into the park, and that was like at 9:15-ish, so an hour and 15 minutes from a little over half a mile away, we got a spot and we talked to this nice man who was there, and he said that they got there a little bit later and the lots were full. So at that point, Augusta National just turns you away and you have to go find parking somewhere else in Augusta, like paid parking, which would have ruined the trip. So my first piece of advice, and something to keep in mind if you're going there, is parking. It's great that it was free. I don't know whose fault this is. Augusta can't control, or like Augusta National and the Masters can't control the traffic. At the same time, the sheriff's department is doing a whole slew of things. So it's tough for them to know exactly where things are breaking down They have to secure the perimeter. They have to look at other stuff. They have their own job to do. So I don't know how it's prevented, except for maybe like sticking a few more police cars just in the shoulder lane so people can't drive up. And by the way, if you did that and there are people sitting in completely standstill traffic and you're just blowing up the shoulder to cut in, screw you. Thankfully, that wasn't the majority of people. Everybody was really nice. All the patrons were incredibly nice. And the staff, once you got in there, is unbelievable and something that I want to talk about. But the parking was tough, excruciating. You end up getting a spot in the north lot and then you walk in, and all of us had gotten over the frustration of the parking and we were starting to get our energy back because we were finally making our way into the golf club, and we made it through the practice round. And for me, all I really cared to do above everything else was walk the golf course. I wanted to get some stuff. You can see my Masters shirt here. I got a hat and some other souvenirs. But the main thing I want to do is just walk the golf course. Like I said, it's my favorite thing in the world. I love Alistair McKenzie. I love all that stuff. So right when we get in past the practice rounds, it was a madhouse. It felt like you were moving through a main stage at a concert, which I was not expecting. And we asked one of the guys what this was all about, and he said it was all this line that was zigzagging back and forth to get into the souvenir shop. And we asked him how long it would be, and he said about 1:45 to 2 hours. And at that point, my brother and I and everybody, we were kind of deflated because we had won this lottery. It had been at the top of our list of doing this event, and we finally get through this crazy parking situation, and then we get in and it's a zoo. It's chaos to get into the souvenir shop. You're pushing your way through just to like get to the bathrooms, which have a big line, and then concessions, which is crowded. And we were kind of bummed. That was definitely the low point of the trip, was walking in, seeing all of this stuff and just being like, are we going to be waiting in line and herded around all day? So thankfully what we did was we asked one of the guards. He said, come back at 2 p.m. He was wrong. We found a different souvenir shop because we came back at 2 p.m. and it was still a 2-hour wait. We found another souvenir shop. We ended up going straight to concessions, which was moving pretty smoothly. We got a bunch of food, we got coffee, and then we headed out to the golf course. Before I take you through the golf course and that experience, I'll tell you about the concessions. We tried everything. We were so excited, and the food, as you know, is not super expensive. So the pimento cheese, the egg salad, the peach ice cream sandwich, all the cookies, the breakfast sandwich, and I'll just get into our favorites. For me, my favorite was the peach ice cream sandwich. I thought it was extremely good, mildly sweet. My brother and my dad really liked the breakfast sandwich. We all like the pimento cheese. We like the egg salad. And then my uncle, my dad, my brother all like the brisket sandwich. So there were like 4 or 5 items that were toward the top of our list for all 3 of us. And we discussed this on the way back. The top 5 was relatively the same for all. But yeah, overall, really good food. I wouldn't say like, for me, I thought that the pimento cheese and the egg salad would be a religious experience. But then you go there and you realize they need to produce tens of thousands of these every day, slapping pimento cheese onto white bread. It was really good. It was great for the price. If you can find pimento cheese in Chicago and put it on white bread, you can get pretty close to that Augusta National experience, in my opinion. So yeah, the food was really good. It was great, excellent when you factor in the price. Then we moved on to the golf course, and this is where things started to turn around. We were fed, we got good food, it was inexpensive. We get out to the golf course, things are clearing out a little bit, and we saw John Rahm, and we got to follow him and Olazabal and Sergio around for a few different holes. And we walked from tee box to green of all of the holes. And for me, this was incredible. When you're talking golf and people have been to the Masters or even played Augusta National, they love to talk about the undulation. To me, this had become almost like a tall tale. Every course I played, no matter how undulated it was, somebody who had heard from a friend or been to the Masters is like, oh, this isn't even near Augusta. And so I went in expecting to climb mountains. And I will say, the course is undulated. Period. It's pretty undulated. I mean, it's not the easiest walk. There are no real flat shots. Do I think that the broadcast does a pretty good job capturing the undulation? Probably as well as it could. Do I think Augusta's the most undulated golf course I've ever seen, with every hole being like at the top of the list? Not even close. No way. It was an undulated golf course. There aren't a lot of flat holes. The golf course design that is a religious experience. I mean, the golf course design is something else. It's like walking through amazing artwork to, I don't know how to explain it. It's like walking through music or a symphony or just like this amazing artwork to go through the whole place. And the conditions are impeccable. Is the undulation the thing that would stand out to me? I don't know. Probably not. There were a lot of shots that they don't show you on TV that could get you into a lot of trouble. So as an example, on number 2, we saw somebody miss left, and it's not really like a lot of tall rough at Augusta, but the course will put you into danger with traps. Or on like number 2, it's a par 5, you could fall into this ravine if you're just a little bit off the fairway to the left. So there's a lot of teeth on this golf course, but it's not in the form of rough. It's very different. It's in the form of like how you're setting up for your next shot or like the strategic elements of the course. So we got through 2, 3, and then one of the guards was super nice. And I can't say this enough. Everybody that worked at Augusta National enhances the experience. They're incredible. They have some short stories to tell. They've been there for a while. They're all there, and they really want you to have the best experience possible. So from security to the people that are just like sitting by the lines to anyone that's like in the concessions, everyone's got a smile, and it feels like a great example of just Southern hospitality. Walk through 3, 4, and then finally some guy, as we were crossing over at 4, goes, there's a souvenir shop and concessions. So that's where we ended up going to the souvenir shop, and we got some stuff, and the wait was like 40 minutes to get in there, 30, 40 minutes to get in there. It took about an hour, 15 minutes. I will say, and this is a tip, I saw my uncle looking at his receipt when he came out, and he had to go back in. So I looked at mine, and 2 out of the 4 of us had problems with our receipt. I got double charged on something. He had some issues with the charging, I believe, as well. So if you're going to go there, it's such a madhouse. Double check your receipt when you're leaving. Just double check it. So at that point, we were done with 5. 6 is a really high. 6 is an undulated hole. It's a par 3. We got through 7, 8, 9. And then we finally went back to the car, which was a really long walk, put all of our stuff down, and came back with no stuff and decided we were just gonna like have a cigar and walk the back 9. Starting on number 10, I loved looking at that hole. It was awesome. And then we lit up our cigars. And then we got to Amen Corner, which was something that we always wanted to do. This was the high of the trip. If parking and walking in was a low, walking holes 11, 12, and 13, we had a cigar, we had the Crow's Nest beer, we took a few pictures. That is, without a doubt, the best 3 holes I've ever seen. They're just incredible. The conditions are one thing. The architecture of 11 is just so awesome. 12 is beautiful. You have the bridge. Everybody knows 12, arguably one of the most iconic holes in golf. 13, what they don't tell you in the broadcast is you actually hike up behind hole 12, and it's an elevated tee for the tournament. And then you come into 13, and it's a great risk reward hole. And just thinking about the pros, the best players in the world playing these 3 holes, it made watching it Thursday through Sunday, especially with that wind, different. It made it just, I don't want to call it more fun because the Masters is always fun, but you have a bit of an understanding of the thinking element that could go into some of these shots, the benefit of going second, how tight some of these targets need to be for the pros, and how much trouble they can get into on basically like a knife edge for teetering one way or being in serious trouble. So that was the highlight for all of us. Never seen my dad so happy anywhere, I don't know, ever, as when we were walking through 11, 12, and 13. The sun was out and it was beautiful. So if you ever get the opportunity to go to Augusta, or you want a practice round or a regular round, I would recommend walking the course. But for me, the front 9 was nice and it was cool and fun, but the back 9 was certainly the nicest holes and coolest design that I have ever had the opportunity to walk around. We finished up, we saw like Rory on the putting green, then we went over to the par 3 for a bit, and then we headed out at about 5 p.m. and our parking spot, which was all the way at the end, was a real asset getting out. We got out super quickly, got back to Atlanta in a couple hours. As we were walking out, we were all on cloud 9. There was one other thing that we were reminded of as we were walking out. So you walk by like this clubhouse or this lodging, and everyone had the azalea drink, which is the unofficial drink of the Masters. That was such a bummer because I would have loved to try that, but you have to be behind or in some exclusive club to try that. So the unofficial drink of the Masters you can get if you're with some elevated wristband or status. But for us who have just won the lottery, we got Crow's Nest beer, which was great, but then there was no way to try some of these things that you read about. My golf course had sent out that they were doing azaleas over the weekend. When we were there Wednesday night, when I was there Wednesday night, I got the email and I looked at it and I was just like, oh, see, this is a bummer because I really want to try. I can't try the azalea at Augusta National because I'm not corporate or, something like that. Final thoughts. If you win the lottery, of course, I would recommend going. I loved going on the practice round because there was no pressure to see all the golfers. Then we got to come home and think about the course while we actually watched the tournament. And there was such good coverage on the Masters app and whatnot. But I would go back in a heartbeat. If I went back, here are some things that I would do differently. First, I would see if I could work any sort of corporate angle at Augusta National. I would, no matter what, stay closer to Augusta National Golf Club. You should be at the gates by like 10 to 7. People rush in there. They all want to buy these like Masters gnomes and then resell them on eBay. You have to get there early for that. The lines start queuing up very early in the morning. So we, like I said, we didn't get into the park till like 9:15. I'd want to be in by like 8:15 and start my day that way. If I went back with other people who had been there before, it would be a super different trip. I would grab some concessions. I would probably hit the Souvenir Shop for just one or two things, but then I would go post up at hole 12 and just drink beer, smoke cigars, and hang out all day because I can't see a better way to spend an afternoon or a morning than that. If I were to go with my friends who hadn't gone, maybe we'd fly into South Carolina. We saw that Columbia is like an hour away. That would be a much better drive. We would look for some sort of elevated parking or something like a shuttle or something that could get us in closer to the gates than what we did. Because like I said, such a bummer. I don't really know how that gets improved. There's not really much help on the radio stations that they provide. So, looking for a way to beat that, but maybe that's just a necessary evil. I don't know if it's even possible to book lodging in Augusta because people are renting these houses already. So one thing my uncle mentioned, which is smart, and maybe you can do this, if you think there's any chance you win the lotto, go get an Airbnb right now. And then when the lottery comes out, you can always just cancel it and open it up for somebody else because that is going to be super hot property. Where do I stand on the Masters tournament? I love it more than ever. I thought that this Masters tournament was great. Amazing to see what Scottie Scheffler's doing and the wins and watching the pros struggle on the greens on Saturday. The wins on Friday and the greens on Saturday were so fun. So heading into golf season in Chicago, the bug has never been stronger. The appreciation for the Masters is at an all-time high, and you'll find me back in the lottery again this year because if I get tickets, we're going with another group next year and having another very special, memorable day. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you've been there, please leave some comments about your experience there. Hope to see you in the next one.